Today we are looking at The Conjuring, the first installment in the film franchise. The movie opens with a couple telling Lorraine and Ed about a girl named Annabelle that died in the house several years back. They agreed to let her spirit stay and inhabit the doll. They eventually threw the doll out, but one day it teleported back inside. They believed it was an evil doll, something that was inhumane.
It's something demonic.
The shot pans out, revealing that it was a documentary for the class. A freeze frame shows that they are the world's most renowned paranormal investigators, revealing that it is based on a true story. A time skip occurs when the parents move into a mansion. Roger and Carolyn are the old but loving parents. They have 5 daughters: Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April. While playing blind man's bluff, they break a plank in the wall, finding the cellar that was sealed up. They decide to explore it the next day. Sadie, the dog, won't come inside the house. Waking up with a mysterious bruise, Carolyn finds Roger in the cellar, sorting out things to keep and throw away. She spots that the clocks stop at 3:07, assuming that they broke on the ride to the house. They find their dog Sadie deceased outside. At Warren's house, Ed shows an investigator around the basement with all the memorabilia from the cases previous, setting the precedent to not touch any cursed items as they can latch onto someone. They don't incinerate them because the item is just a vessel for the spirit. Creepy things start happening at the parents' house. Christine's leg is grabbed and the ghost farts, I guess.
Really stinks.
A door starts opening on its own. Cindy sleepwalks again, bumping her head into the closet. It was a reoccurring problem in the previous house. Roger gets her back to bed. Getting out of the shower, Carolyn finds more bruises on her back. Roger leaves to go to work the next morning, finding a bird suffocating in the place Sadie died. The kids leave to go to school. Meanwhile, April gets homeschooled. Carolyn and April decide to play blind man's buff. Carolyn follows the claps with a blindfold on. Following the clap, she finds April in the closet. However, April was in the other room. Christine wakes up to the ghost grabbing her foot. She spots something behind the door. Nancy goes to check it out, but the door shuts on them. The family comes to check upon her, revealing what the ghost said.
That it was my family dead.
Investigating a case, they showed that not all sounds are haunted spirits. There is typically a rational explanation for all of it.
The water coming off the pipe combined with the wind coming through the broken window. You heard it all through the house because of these pipes. This place isn't haunted.
Oh, it rarely is.
Carolyn investigates the house when the pictures explode and she gets locked in the cellar. Andrea finds Cindy banging her head against her closet again. Letting her sleep in her bed tonight, she tucks her in, but the banging is still there. While opening the closet, Cindy sits up. The demon jumps on her. Arriving home, Roger is confused about what happened. At a university lecture about paranormal possessions, Carolyn pleads for help with their problem. Agreeing to help, they go to their house. Exploring the house, they explain that the rancid smell is an indication of a demonic spirit. The banging of the doors is always in threes because they mock the Holy Trinity, the Holy Spirit, the Son, and the Father. Interviewing the parents about the paranormal occurrences that have happened, they let Carolyn explain her experiences in a tape recording. Lorraine interviews April about her new friend Rory in a mirror toy. Lorraine explains to the family about her vision's entity being hung on a tree. She is a clairvoyant, meaning she has supernatural abilities to see the past or future. The malevolent spirit is connected to their family, meaning for an exorcism, they need to gather evidence for the church so they can approve an exorcist to come out and help them with the problem. They find out from research in the past that the house was built by the Judsons, who was married to a woman named Bathsheba. They had a baby, but when it was just 7 days old, Judson found her sacrificing the baby in front of the fireplace. She then climbed onto the tree by the dock, proclaiming her love to Satan, cursing anyone that would try to take the land. She then hung herself. The time of death was 3:07. A different family, the Walkers, lived there too. They had a boy named Rory that disappeared in the woods, and she committed suicide in the cellar. The 200-acre land was subdivided and sold off. A boy drowned in a pond, and a maid in a neighboring home committed suicide too. With the help of Drew and the county sheriff Brad, they set up cameras around the house to catch any paranormal occurrences. The family find out about the backstory of Judson and Bathsheba. Listening in around the house, it is calm this time of night, but the door to the cellar creaks open. They decide to investigate, asking for a sign that the entity wants to talk. Lorraine senses something is there. there, but they give up because they lose the signal. When leaving the cellar, the door shuts. The family erupts with happiness in the morning. The kids feel safer with the Warrens around, even handing them a plate of pancakes. This side of the film shows how sweet and lovable Ed and Lorraine are.
They have such a beautiful family, don't they?
April. So you bring me pancakes?
Yeah, you've got to help.
You know, I'll start with the Chevy.
The Chevy is a recurring joke in the film.
What's wrong with the Chevy? What's not wrong with her? Got a good deal on a rebuild that wrecking yard in Smithfield. Yeah, you look like you know what you're doing. Lorraine and I always wanted a spot in the country. I'll sell you this one.
The wind blows a sheet onto a window where a figure approaches Carolyn, vomiting blood into her mouth. She runs up to find that something is wrong, but Carolyn claims that she is fine and just has nausea from the night spent up. The cameras that were set up capture pictures of Cindy. They find out a spirit is following her in the shadows. They let all the camera shots go off, but a door locks. They hear voices inside the room. Getting inside, they lose Cindy. They use a UV blacklight to find that there is a secret room inside the closet. Retrieving Cindy, April explains that Rory used to hide in there when he was scared. Lorraine goes inside and pulls up a rope, revealing that it was the noose used to hang Bathsheba. She steps back and falls through the house. Ed scrambles around to try and find her. Opening up the toy music box, she spots the maid. Bathsheba levitates over. She runs out of the basement, realizing that she possesses Carolyn. Try and kill her kids. This is important, so remember it for later. A force knocks over all the crosses in the house. Cindy is pulled across the floor. They cut her hair to stop the demon from pulling her around. Now that they have proof, they need to wait for the church to approve it and send someone. In the meantime, they leave the house. Lorraine hears a girl call out to her. Going to the lake by the house, she spots Judy drowning in the lake. She calls home to make sure Judy is okay because her visions are typically warnings. They meet with Father Gordon to try and approve the request of sending an exorcist to the house. Father Gordon agrees to help push the exorcism request through to the church. They spot hands and the ghost of Rory haunting them in the picture. Lorraine's visions become true. Judy is pulled out in the middle of her sleep, calling out for Lorraine and Ed. She goes downstairs to find the Annabelle doll missing. Judy is then locked in a room. Bathsheba and Annabelle sitting in a rocking chair. She wakes up Nana with her screaming. Fun fact, actually, Nana is the real Lorraine Warren. She liked that the film was historically accurate and true to her experiences.
I was on the set, you know, and I didn't really have any corrections or changes.
In the car ride back to the house, Lorraine senses that something is wrong. They rush home to help Judy, finding that the doll is back in the case. Roger comes back to find that Carolyn left with Christine and April. They are driving off somewhere, calling Ed to tell him about what just happened. They know she is taking them back to the house to try and kill them. They rush Adair to stop her, trying to take her out to Father Gordon, but the witch won't let her leave the house. They decide to exorcise them themselves because Ed is trained in assisting an exorcist. Drew runs around the house to try and find the hidden April. Birds start flying into the walls and the windows. They hold Carolyn down to be exorcised. She starts levitating and breaks the chair. Drew calls out that April is in the kitchen. She runs off to find April, grabbing her. They manage to reach her and exorcise Bathsheba, reminding Carolyn of her memories. She vomits out the blood. They all return to one big happy family. Returning home, they find that the Vatican had approved the exorcism. Ed adds the music box to their collection. In January 1971, the Perron family moved into a 14-room farmhouse located in Harrisfield, Rhode Island. They were warned when moving into the house to leave the lights on at night. While unloading the boxes from the box trucks, Andrea noticed something strange in the kitchen. A man was attacked, described by only flesh and blood. She had experienced a full-body apparition. At the time, it was her first. Christine soon saw the man and said he dressed funny. Cindy said the same thing, and Nancy was the last person to see him before he disappeared. It was their first time seeing the supernatural world. They later found out it was Johnny Arnold, a man that died in the house in the 1850s. He had drunk horse liniment, which was 90% alcohol. Small paranormal occurrences would happen, odd noises, but because the house was an old mansion that dated back centuries, it was normal for creaks and cracks to happen. The parents didn't believe the paranormal occurrences. More eerie things began happening. Birds would fly at their windows randomly at night. Clock began stopping at 3:07 a.m. Cindy would hear spirits only at her bed. They told her that 7 soldiers were buried in the walls. The smell of rotting flesh would travel across the house from room to room. Contrary to popular belief, Carolyn never asked for help. In actuality, college students showed up to investigate the haunted house, saying Carolyn had called them to help, but with her recollection, she never did. From what they gathered, they called Ed and Lorraine for help at the seminar. The Warrens showed up unannounced. Lauren immediately sensed a malignant spirit. She immediately could sense that the name was Bathsheba. This was surprising because they had never heard the name before. They began suggesting the idea of conducting a seance because they believed the spirit was oppressing Carolyn and could potentially possess her. They never conducted an exorcism like the film suggests because Ed was a devout Christian and respected the exorcist too much to act alone. It was only on their 5th visit that they began the seance without the condolences of Roger. A gust of wind blew out all the candles. The table started to float. A chair began to levitate into the air. Falling, it smashed open. She laid on the ground, motionless, for a moment stunned. They didn't know if she would ever get back up. Getting angry, Roger punched Ed in the face and kicked them out of the house for hurting Carolyn, without respects to him or his family. Several months passed. They visited again to check up on Carolyn to see if she was alive. She had healed up. She started believing in benignant spirits. The rotting smell had dissipated and the malignant spirits had been exorcised. Carolyn never remembered anything from the seance or anything that happened that day. Only when she woke up afterward, her body was bruised, damaged from the exploding chair, being flung around and held during the seance. It took a toll on her body. However, Carolyn said explicitly after watching the movie that she would never hurt her kids and that the scissor scene was dramatized for the sake of the movie. The family stayed in the house for several more years. They moved out in 1980. Years later, April Perron passed at the age of 51. Later that year, Roger Perron passed at the age of 71. Bathsheba Thayer Sherman was born in 1812. She had a simple communal childhood upbringing. She married at the age of 32 in 1844 to Judson. She moved to the Judson farmland immediately after. They lived on a 200-acre farmland in Harrisville, Rhode Island. When babysitting a neighbor's baby, a baby had died in her care. People questioned if it was harmed deliberately. When they found its corpse, they examined it. They found a hole in the base of its head, suggesting that a needle could have done enough damage to the newborn. She got away with it because it never got to court. They soon birthed a child named Herbert. Sources become problematic at this point because it was the 19th century and there wasn't much information of Bathsheba. But like the film suggests, Judson found her sacrificing the baby near the fireplace. She then climbed onto a tree to sacrifice herself and proclaiming her love for Satan and the devil, cursing the people that would take her land in the future. Andrea Perron is the oldest of the 5 children. She didn't believe Bathsheba was the malignant spirit haunting them. Andrea is the author of the House of Darkness, House of Light saga, which portrays her and her mother's experiences at the Harrisville, Rhode Island Conjuring house. Growing up with all the paranormal activities and learning to accept the spirits because they were the real intruders in their houses. She believed it was the spirit that hung herself in the barn in 1797. Mrs. Susan Arnold, the wife of John Arnold, explaining the first paranormal incident Carolyn had in the barn when she was hit with the handside blade. It brings up the question if Ed and Lorraine blamed a friendly spirit for everything that had gone wrong. Possibly. Andrea spoke about this possibility recently in several interviews. The Conjuring was released in 2013. It went on to gross $42 million in the opening weekend, landing in third, breaking the Purge's record of being the biggest grossing R-rated film. Thank you for watching. Next week, I delve into the second installment of the Conjuring film franchise, making sure to include the true stories and events